I had chased after Willow for 7 years and been married to her for 5. Yet, on the very night her first love returned to the country, she asked me for a divorce. She thought I would break down in tears and beg her to stay, but to her utter shock, I simply smiled and signed the divorce papers on the spot, even casually, walking away with her 2 most expensive mansions. The very next day, I wiped every trace of myself from our home and moved out without hesitation. Still, she naively believed I was playing hard to get and that I would surely come crawling back within 3 days to beg for reconciliation. What she didn't know was that her first love's ex-wife had secretly harbored feelings for me for many years. Now, finally, we had the chance to reignite what fate once interrupted. Chapter 1. As agreed, I'll finish consolidating your assets before handing them back to you. But are you really sure you want to leave? Staring at the photo of my wife tangled up with another man, my heart had already sunk into an icy abyss. I'm sure. After a brief silence, the person on the other end of the line said, "All right, but don't be too heartbroken. Your wife and my husband hooking up, that's nothing more than a pair of cheating scumbags finding each other. If they can betray us, we might as well team up and piss them off." By evening, I prepared a table full of Willow's favorite dishes, just like I used to. I lit the candles and waited for my wife to come home. I waited from 7 p.m. all the way until 10 p.m. Not a sound came from the door. Outside was silent as a grave. I checked my phone, hovered my finger over her contact, then sighed and scrolled down to call the security office at her company instead. Is President Lou still working overtime? I didn't want to disturb her, so I ordered some late-night snacks. Could you help me deliver them? The security guard, recognizing my voice, respectfully replied, President Wong. President Lou left 2 hours ago. She probably had a social engagement. I forced myself to respond casually. All right, thanks for letting me know. The rest of the night, I kept my eyes glued to my phone, but no messages came from Willow. In the past, she would always tell me if she had a dinner party. Tonight was different, probably because the person she was with mattered more than usual. I looked at the now cold table of food, my face blank as I stood up and dumped everything into the trash before heading upstairs to sleep. Willow didn't come home that night. The next morning, I was jolted awake by the sound of a car engine in the yard. I hurried downstairs without even changing out of my pajamas. She was just stepping through the door. I quickly opened the shoe cabinet, pulled out her slippers, and placed them on the floor for her. Work through the night? I asked, noticing the dark circles under her eyes. Willow gave a nonchalant and bent down to change shoes, turning away as naturally as ever. I helped her out of her coat and suggested, take a shower and get some good sleep. She was used to my meticulous care. I expected her to head upstairs immediately, but today she stood still, her eyes lingering on my face with a complicated look. Holding her coat, I asked, "What's wrong?" "Nothing," she said after a pause. "I'll tell you later. I had a feeling something big was coming." Smiling, I replied, "All right." Sure enough, half an hour later, Willow placed divorce papers on the table. "I'm sorry, he's back. You can ask for anything you want, I'll try to satisfy it." I knew exactly who he was. Makoto, Willow's childhood sweetheart. They had grown up together. Willow's world had always revolved around him. No matter what he asked for, she would say yes, but their romance only lasted until high school. Makoto had left the country for love, abandoning Willow to years of heartache. Seeing me silently staring down, Willow thought the news had shattered me. She softened her voice and said, "Don't worry, it'll take about a month to get the divorce certificate. Until then, I'll keep coming home to give you time to adjust." I inhaled deeply, cracked my knuckles, and picked up the pen to sign my name on the divorce agreement. Willow noticed the slight tremble in my hand and looked like she almost felt guilty. She bit her lip, but said nothing. Taking the papers into the study, I watched her retreating back. She hadn't even made it 2 steps before pulling out her phone to text someone, her lips curling into a light, happy smile. I withdrew my gaze and called Anna again. She asked for a divorce. "Proceed as planned. Set up a new identity for me. I'm moving to North City." Anna chuckled. "Moving that far? If you're going to cut ties, you cut them clean." I replied calmly. "If you can't hold on to sand, better to let it slip through your fingers." Hanging up, I felt as if a heavy weight had lifted off my chest. I opened my notepad and set a countdown, 1 month until divorce. In just 1 month, I would finally be free to return to my own path, leaving all of this behind, ready to start a brand new life. Chapter 2. Since we had already decided to divorce, there was no way I would continue staying at the company. I had poured a lot of my heart and soul into Lou Corporation as well. So before leaving, I wanted to complete the handover properly. Willow and I left home one after the other and headed straight to the company. I quickly sorted through my tasks, expediting anything that could be dealt with immediately. One document required Willow's personal signature. Keeping it strictly professional, I took the file and went to the executive president's office. Just as I raised my hand to knock, the door was pulled open from the inside. Standing there was a man dressed in an impeccably tailored, expensive suit, a cup of coffee in his hand. When he saw me, Makoto raised an eyebrow in surprise before giving me an apologetic smile. "Oh, President Wong, it's you. Look at me. I've been so busy spending time with Willow since I got back. I completely forgot you were working here too. Sorry for not informing you earlier." But even if he hadn't said anything, I already knew. The day Makoto returned, Willow had rented out an entire club to throw him a welcome back party. She had even arranged for a massive heart-shaped display made entirely of roses at the entrance. Their circle of friends had flooded social media with photos and videos, all filled with envy and admiration. It would have been impossible for me not to find out. It was also in that moment I fully realized, no matter what I did, I could never replace Makoto in Willow's heart. Fortunately, this ridiculous marriage was about to come to an end. I gave a calm smile. "No problem. It's not too late to find out now. Are you looking for Willow?" Makoto stepped closer to me, his gaze carrying a subtle, knowing glint. "She might be a bit occupied right now. If it's something important, you can tell me. I'll pass the message along." The insinuation in his voice was crystal clear, hinting at how close they were and what had just transpired between them. I kept my composure and replied evenly, "It's work-related. If she's busy, I'll come back later." I turned to leave. Wait. Makoto suddenly reached out to take the document from me, but somehow stumbled, and the coffee cup slipped from his hand, shattering into pieces on the floor, splashing the remaining coffee all over his suit. He frowned deeply, looking at his stained clothes, his expression a tangled mess of anger and confusion. "If you're upset, you could have just said so. I've always considered you a friend. I was just trying to invite you to lunch. How could you?" Before he could finish, a figure rushed out from the office. Willow stepped out, her face darkening as she saw the mess on Makoto. She glared at me and snapped coldly, "If you have a problem, take it out on me. Why target Makoto? Target him." She didn't even bother asking what had happened, just immediately made that judgment. Looking into her sharp, accusing eyes, I felt a sharp pain deep in my chest, but it didn't matter anymore. It was all about to end. I answered calmly. It was Mr. Ito's own clumsiness. "Yes, Willow." Makoto quickly grabbed Willow's hand, as if afraid she would argue with me, and said softly, "It was my own fault. Don't blame President Wong." But his words only made Willow's glare towards me grow darker. "Don't make me waste the last bit of goodwill I have left for you," she said coldly. "Get out of here. Go back to wherever you came from. Come find me again only after you've figured things out." With that, she pulled Makoto into the office, slammed the door shut, and locked it from inside. I stood there for a while, feeling a bitter chuckle rise up in my throat. Figure things out before you come back to see me. I had already figured it out. Whatever lingering feelings I had for Willow were completely gone. Chapter 3. Looking down at the documents in my hands, I sighed. I figured I could only head back to my office for now and come back later. Unexpectedly, not long after, I bumped into Makoto again, this time in the break room. He had already changed into another suit, a custom-made one with no visible labels, neat and luxurious. As if nothing had happened, Makoto casually greeted me. "President Wong, no assistant with you, making your own coffee." I gave a simple and casually tossed the conversation back at him. "Is Mr. Ito an assistant now? Seems like you never run out of coffee to make." Makoto froze, caught off guard, struggling for a response. By the time he finally gathered his thoughts, I cut him off flatly. "Mr. Ito, there's no need to put on a show in front of me. I just want to say, you don't need to target me. I'm not your enemy." I figured Willow must have told him about the divorce right away. Makoto was momentarily stunned, then gave a half-smile. "I never saw you as an enemy." He leaned in slightly, his voice low and disdainful. "A man like you, with no family background, orphaned young. You're lucky you even survived. You and Willow aren't from the same world. Take the suit I'm wearing, for instance. I don't even have to say anything. She knows exactly what to custom order for me. Each one costs tens of thousands. Compared to that, the stuff you're wearing," he sneered, "to her, it's no different from trash. Not just the clothes, you too. She was only with you out of a fleeting sense of novelty. You were never anything real." His mocking tone was sharp and deliberate. I had no strong feelings about luxury goods. His words didn't particularly disturb me, but being insulted to my face, I had no reason to just swallow it. I looked steadily at Makoto for a moment, then said, "So, you were just a fleeting novelty for Anna too?" Makoto was stunned speechless. I smiled and continued. "No wonder Mr. Ito empathizes with me so well." Makoto's face flushed and paled alternately. In the end, he could only mutter, "I'm nothing like you," before grabbing his coffee and walking away stiffly. Still, I had a feeling he might start resenting me even more after this. I couldn't help feeling a little annoyed at myself. Why bother getting into a war of words with someone so irrelevant? I grew up in a wealthy household too, but when I was 15, disaster struck. Both my parents committed suicide. leaving me completely alone in the world. That was when Anna appeared. If it weren't for Anna sending help my way back then, I might not have survived. So later, when Anna came to me asking for help, I never refused. At that time, Anna said to me, "There's a guy hitting on me lately. I kinda like him, but he's probably just chasing the thrill, obsessed with the idea of conquest. If he's going to be my man, I won't share. There's a clingy woman haunting him, annoying as hell. You go woo her. Once Makoto cuts ties with her, you can quietly back off. After that, whatever you ask for, I'll agree to." To me, Anna was a savior. Even without her last promise, I would have helped her without hesitation. In order to pursue Willow, I handed over my business to Anna to manage. Even before graduating, I willingly joined Sue Corporation, starting as an ordinary employee. I just didn't expect this chase to last 7 years. In the beginning, Willow had been completely repulsed by me, but I was persistent, thoughtful to the smallest details. I didn't manage to move Willow's heart. Instead, I moved my own. I truly fell in love with her. Finally, on the day Makoto left for overseas, Willow got drunk. She blocked me at the door of the private lounge, her breath hot and tempting. "George, since you like me so much, stay with me forever." That night, we crossed the line for the first time. Anna later warned me, "George, don't play with fire unless you're ready to get burned." But I was full of confidence, believing I could make Willow's heart turn away from Makoto. That was the bet Anna and I had made. Looking back now, not only had I had lost completely, and I accepted it. I didn't know when Makoto left the company. At 3 p.m., just as I was about to start a department meeting, Willow stormed into my office. "George, I told you I would try to compensate you. Why do you keep provoking Makoto?" At once, I knew Mr. Ito must have gone running to her to complain. I asked calmly, "What did he say?" Willow hesitated. "What?" I said. I repeated. "What did Mr. Ito tell you?" I didn't have time to argue. I was busy with the meeting. No matter what he said, I decided to take the blame to save time. "You can apologize to him on my behalf. Tell him, if he ever sees me again, he should go the other way." Willow had never seen me like this before. She thought I was still angry over the divorce and had given up all pretense. She grabbed my arm as I was about to leave, her gaze complicated as it settled on my face. "George, I know I've wronged you, but can you not be like this?" "Be like what?" I asked. "You." Willow frowned deeply, struggling to speak. Finally, she said heavily, "The divorce process is already underway. Even if you disagree, it's too late. Don't waste your energy doing meaningless things." Chapter 4. I really wanted to tell her. I didn't refuse the divorce, nor would it ever be too late. At this point, I even wished time could move faster, so I could leave this mess behind as soon as possible. But Willow didn't give me the chance. After throwing her harsh words at me, she hurried off to comfort the one who truly held her heart. I welcomed the peace and threw myself into work instead. For several days straight, I left early and returned late, sleeping in the guest room at night. I didn't cross paths with Willow at all, nor did I bother to check if she was even coming home. Finally, after clearing up all my pending tasks, I submitted my resignation to Human Resources. Lisa from HR looked troubled. "President Wang, about this. Shouldn't President Liu sign it?" Another signature. I thought back to that previous document. It was ultimately signed by Willow's assistant, Luis. But this time, since it was a resignation letter, Willow would probably sign it without hesitation. Right. After some thought, I decided to do the same thing again. When I handed the resignation letter to Luis, he couldn't hide his shock. Even though President Liu now had Mr. Ito at her side, Wang was still, technically, her legitimate husband. "Are you really resigning, President Wang?" Luis's expression showed not just sympathy but genuine regret for losing a valued colleague. "With you gone, President Liu will lose her right-hand man." I shook my head and said, "President Liu already knows I'm leaving. Just give it to her, she'll sign it." After the divorce, there was no reason for me to stay. Hearing this, Luis had no choice but to take my resignation letter to Willow. At that moment, Willow was chatting on the phone with Makoto, discussing where to have dinner that night. She glanced at Luis, waved him over to hand her the document. Luis watched as his boss signed her name without the slightest hesitation. She even smiled gently as she said, "When the old doesn't leave, the new can't come in. If it's not right, there's no need to force it." Luis thought to himself, "It seems President Liu really has made up her mind." Without asking more, he took the signed document and left the office. I wasted no time. After submitting my resignation to HR and finishing all the handover procedures, I carried my box of personal belongings and walked out of the building. Standing outside, I took several deep breaths, feeling as if I had finally earned my freedom, bidding farewell to those humiliating days for good. Willow knew nothing of all this. She only noticed that the office suddenly felt eerily quiet. the men who used to show up every now and then, bringing her little treats and checking on her well-being, had completely disappeared these past few days. I used to treat myself like her personal nutritionist. During breaks, I would brew health teas or prepare fruit bowls. Knowing Willow had a sensitive stomach, I would even bake soft bread in the break room sometimes. That afternoon, after having spicy hot pot with Makoto, Willow's stomach started burning painfully. She suddenly craved the snow fungus soup I used to make. She picked up the phone and called the internal line, asking Luis to come over. "Where's the gentleman?" she asked. Luis paused, confused. "President Wang left this morning, didn't he?" Before he could finish, Willow rubbed her temples and said, "Forget it. Just tell him I'll have dinner with him tonight." She assumed I must be feeling down after she proposed the divorce, and although I was usually very even-tempered, even I had lost control a few times before. Willow thought to herself, she had indeed spent more time with Makoto lately. Since she had promised to live out this last month peacefully, it was only right to comfort me a little. But seeing her confused look, Luis finally couldn't hold back and said, "President Liu, President Wang has completed all his handover work. He has officially resigned." Willow abruptly looked up. "What did you say?" The coldness flashing in her eyes made Luis's heart clench. He braced himself and continued, "I gave you his resignation letter yesterday. President Wang said you were aware." His voice grew smaller and smaller, but Willow stopped listening altogether. An inexplicable rage surged within her. Grabbing her bag, she stormed out of the office. She sped all the way home, slamming the brakes hard when she arrived at the yard. Closing her eyes, Willow tried to suppress the storm in her heart. She thought about how I used to be. Whenever I was upset, I would say it outright, whether she cared or not, then carry on as usual. But now, he had actually resigned, without a word. Did he really think I would go and coax him back? Willow gritted her teeth, pushed open the car door, and stepped inside. But the scene she encountered made all her anger vanish in an instant, only to be replaced by a surge of blood rushing to her head. "What are you doing?" she blurted out. I hadn't expected her to come back at this time. Glancing up at her, I casually handed the photo album in my hands to the stunned housekeeper next to me. "Go ahead and keep sorting," I said. "I'll have a few words with President Liu." Willow frowned as she stared at the mess all over the floor. Scattered everywhere were the gifts she had given me over the years, or the matching couples items we had bought together on random outings. There had been a time when Willow indulged me in these things, not knowing Makoto would come back. Matching laptops, shoes, hats, suitcases. I was like an ordinary young lover, loving those silly little couple things. But after bringing them home, Willow had never once used any of them. She preferred the old items she was used to, like her ancient laptop, a high school graduation gift from Makoto, still kept in perfect condition. Not using them didn't mean she didn't want them. Looking at the chaos before her, Willow's mind flooded with memories. Her voice turned cold. "George, don't you think you owe me an explanation?" "An explanation for what?" I gave a faint smile and said lightly, "I'm just donating the things I don't use, that's all." Pausing for a second, I added with a trace of mockery, "President Liu, don't tell me you're now suddenly reluctant to part with these things, when you never even spared them a glance before." Back then, she couldn't care less. Now she wanted to pretend to be sentimental. Suddenly, I thought of that notebook she kept using, the one Makoto had given her. 10 years had passed, and she still preserved it so carefully. Love or indifference, the difference couldn't be clearer. Willow stiffened, a heavy anger trapped in her chest. After a long silence, her voice came out low and cold. "Then what about the resignation?" We agreed. "George, even if Makoto said a few things, he wasn't angry at you. Was it really necessary to make a scene over something so trivial?" She actually thought I was making a scene. I couldn't help but find it a little ridiculous. Looking directly into Willow's eyes, I said, one word at a time, "This has nothing to do with Makoto. We're already divorced. I don't care what you do with him, and I don't want to have anything to do with you anymore. Willow, just as you wished. I will never love you again." Chapter 5. It was rare to see such a nearly blank expression on Willow's face. Perhaps it was because she had never heard me say that I didn't love her. She couldn't accept it for a moment. Her thin lips trembled slightly. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. After a long while, her expression finally turned ugly. "George, there's no need for you to say such meaningless things. Makoto won't bother you. I've already said that I'll stay with you for this month, giving you time to slowly move on. Why are you lying to yourself?" She still didn't believe it. I actually laughed. "Fine, then I'll move out. Once I've packed my things, you can even let Makoto move in. I really don't care." Willow stared at me for a while, as if trying to determine whether I was telling the truth. After a moment, she bit her lip, her lowered eyes revealing a trace of concealed conflict, something even she didn't notice herself. "There's no need. Makoto doesn't want to interfere between us. You don't have to keep testing me with words like this. Once I've made up my mind, I won't change it. In my heart, there's only room for Makoto. Instead of wasting time with pointless things, you might as well think about what else you want. Financially, I can compensate you as much as possible. Looking at her cold, somber expression, I found myself speechless for a moment. I wondered just how much I must have loved her before, to have made her believe I would never leave. Willow didn't wait for me to say more. After finishing her words, she turned and left. I guessed she must be going to find Makoto again, but it didn't matter anymore. In fact, what Willow said just now reminded me, since this woman was so generous, it would be rude not to take advantage. After all, who would ever complain about having too much money? Donating it was also an option. That very afternoon, I selected 2 villas from among Willow's many properties, both worth over 100 million yuan. I directly authorized the lawyer to prepare the transfer documents and had them handed over to Luis for Willow's signature. Willow swiftly signed and pressed her fingerprint on the documents. After capping the pen, she lifted her gaze to Luis and asked, "Did he say anything else?" Luis froze. "No, nothing else." Apparently, she thought there was no other way. Willow let out a faint, sarcastic laugh, thinking to herself, probably read some toxic motivational quotes online again. Whatever. He's in a bad mood. Let him be. If he makes any more demands later, just agree to them directly. Still, George had really gone a bit overboard this time. I should leave him hanging for a while longer. Otherwise, with more than 20 days left, who knows what other nonsense he might stir up. Luis observed his boss's expression, wanting to say something but stopping himself. He really wanted to tell her, President Wang doesn't look like he's in a bad mood at all. In fact, he seems positively glowing. But then he thought better of it. After all, this was a matter between husband and wife. As an outsider, it wasn't his place to speak. Luis respectfully responded, then took the signed documents and brought them to me. I immediately listed the 2 villas with a real estate agency, instructing them to sell as quickly as possible. The price didn't matter, the only requirement was full payment up front and a swift transaction. Even at the worst, those 2 villas would fetch at least 1 billion yuan. That evening, I received a WeChat message from Willow. She said she wouldn't be coming back for the next 2 days. She hoped I could calm down, not trap myself in a dead-end mindset, and that we could part on good terms, maybe even stay friends. I stared at that message for 2 seconds before laughing softly. How had I never noticed before just how narcissistic this woman was? Out of sight, out of mind. I hid the conversation and continued packing. After living in this house for 5 years, there was just too much junk. I carefully sorted the important items into boxes, planning to throw away everything else. If I was going to end things, I would end them cleanly. I wasn't planning to leave a single trace behind. Willow didn't come home for 2 days. I was even calmer than I had expected. What I once thought would be unbearable heartache turned out to be nothing at all. Early that morning, just after I had torn off the calendar page from the desk, I suddenly received a call from Luis. Luis said he couldn't reach Willow, but there was an important contract at the company that needed signing urgently. The partner was pressing hard. He had no choice but to contact me. I paused. What about Makoto? Have you asked him? I have. Mr. Ito also doesn't know where President Liu is. I thought for a moment and decided to go over myself. Although the bond between Willow and me was broken, the company still carried my blood, sweat, and tears. Moreover, the project Luis mentioned had originally been my responsibility. I quickly drove to the company. The entrance to Liu Group's office building was right at a large intersection, with traffic flowing heavily. Glancing at the rearview mirror, I flicked on my left turn signal. Just as I was turning the steering wheel, a sedan suddenly sped toward me, slamming into my car head-on. The massive impact deployed the airbags instantly. I felt like a kite whose string had snapped, my mind swelling with dizziness. I could only watch helplessly as the car spun out of control and smashed violently into the median strip. The other car wasn't in good shape either. Thick smoke billowed out, obscuring everything inside. I shook my head weakly and felt wetness on my face. When I wiped it, my hand came away covered in blood. Before I could react, a familiar figure rushed into my view. My heart clenched painfully. I instinctively tried to open the door and get out, but just as my hand touched the door handle, I saw her, the woman I once loved, running straight toward the other car. Her face was filled with panic and anxiety I had never seen before. Makoto. Makoto. She opened the door, nervously and tenderly checking the person inside. It turned out it was Makoto. My hand slipped down from the door. My chest heaved uncontrollably, overwhelmed with turmoil. I even forgot about the pain. In my vision, there was only her face full of frantic worry. Security guards rushed over to help and carried Makoto out of the car. Makoto, I'm sorry, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have gone drinking without telling you. She choked, voice trembling. It's my fault. Please don't sleep. I'll take you to the hospital right away. What about the car? Louise caught up from behind and said anxiously. President Lou, we need to wait for the traffic police to determine fault. Determine what? Willow roared. Go get the car. She then turned her cold gaze in my direction and spat out chillingly. Whoever dared to hurt Makoto, I'll make them pay the price. Through the haze of smoke, I clearly saw the violent rage and killing intent in her eyes. I once thought Willow simply didn't love me anymore, but at least, she must have loved me once. Turns out, there was no love at all. In front of Makoto, she could completely ignore whether I lived or died. A bitter, self-deprecating smile tugged at my lips. Finally, the wound on my forehead started to ache intensely, pain spreading from my nerves straight to my heart, suffocating me. After a long while, the people across the street left. At that moment, my phone rang. I struggled to grab it and answer. It was Anna. As soon as I spoke, my eyes turned bloodshot, and my voice came out hoarse and low. I had a car accident. Can you call an ambulance for me? Anna was stunned for a second before waving at her assistant and putting the call on speakerphone. Tell me your location, she said calmly. I'll send someone immediately. I forced myself to stay conscious and described my location and condition. Her assistant immediately went to make the arrangements. Anna frowned and spoke with a clear, sharp voice. So, have you finally given up? Leaning weakly against the seat, I surveyed the chaotic scene through half-lidded eyes. Many onlookers were recording videos with their phones. I softly replied, when everything's arranged, I want to leave as soon as possible. Anna paused for a moment before speaking word by word. Now is your chance. I'll make sure you die in this car accident and disappear from Willow's world forever. Chapter 6. Willow hurriedly rushed Makoto to the hospital, personally accompanying him through all the examinations. Still worried, she even called in the most authoritative doctors in the hospital, repeatedly emphasizing that nothing could be allowed to go wrong with Makoto's care. After Luis finished the hospitalization procedures, he received a call from the traffic police. He froze slightly, responded briefly, and hurried back to the hospital room. President Lou, about Mr. Wong. Why are you bringing him up now? Willow's brow furrowed tightly. She didn't even give him a chance to continue. I'll be staying here at the hospital these days to take care of Makoto. Keep a close eye on the company. Don't bother me unless absolutely necessary. As for George, he already took 2 villas as a cooling-off gift, didn't he? Besides, with Makoto getting into a car accident, if George can't understand the situation, it's just him being petty. Thinking this, Willow spoke in a heavy voice. Put his matters aside for now. Nothing is more important than Makoto. With her words leaving no room for argument, Luis could only swallow back what he was about to say. It seemed President Liu truly didn't care about Mr. Wong anymore. But still, forget it. Mr. Wong had always treated him decently. He would handle it himself. Willow stayed at the hospital for 3 days. Originally, she intended to have George bring her some clothes. But remembering they hadn't spoken for days, she decided to go home herself instead. When she entered the house, the cleaning lady was busy tidying the living room. For some reason, Willow suddenly felt an eerie emptiness in the home. Her brows knitted. She glanced upstairs and asked, "Where's Sir?" The cleaning lady was a bit confused by the question. "Sir, I don't know. President Wong, I've come by these past 2 days, but no one has been home. Not back." Willow's face grew cold. Thinking for a moment, she guessed George must have found out she was at the hospital with Makoto and was throwing a tantrum again. He really didn't understand, did he? Since they were divorced, separation was inevitable. She only stayed with him for a month out of past affection as a married couple. Did he really think she would have a change of heart? Willow pulled out her phone and called me. "Sorry, the number you dialed has been turned off." Heh, even turned off his phone. A wave of unexplainable frustration surged in her chest. Willow threw her purse on the sofa and strode upstairs. The hallway on the second floor used to be lined with lush green plants, orchids, succulents, even the delicate and rare lily of the valley, all of them carefully collected by me over the years. Now, all the shelves were empty, not even a single leaf left. Willow's breathing tightened. An ominous feeling grew stronger. She rushed forward and pushed open the master bedroom door. The curtains were open, and sunlight poured in, but the wind blowing through made the room feel even more barren, quiet, and deserted. Everything was gone. The room was a mess. The closets once filled with suits, shirts, and ties were now completely empty. For a long moment, Willow's heavy breathing was the only sound, but it couldn't dispel the burning anger in her eyes. She clenched her fingers, checking every spot carefully. The wardrobe, no clothes. The bathroom, only one lone toothbrush remained. Even the drawer where spare razors were kept, empty. For a second, Willow wondered if she was dreaming. In this dream, everything related to me had completely vanished. She squeezed her eyes shut hard, then opened them again. Nothing changed. That man, he just left without saying a word. Where did he go? By what right? Willow's eyes turned red. fury surging up to nearly scorch her rational mind. Impossible. On the surface, she looked indifferent, but inside, she loved him desperately. Just a few days ago, she had been racking her brain trying to win him back. How could he just disappear without a trace? He must be playing some trick again, waiting for her to go looking for him. Those 2 villas, weren't they the best proof? Willow forced herself to calm down slightly and headed back downstairs. You really haven't seen Sir even once? She questioned the cleaning lady sharply, nearly scaring her. The cleaning lady looked at Willow's bloodshot eyes and stammered. And no, just a few days ago, some people came to collect things. They said they were retrieving Sir's final belongings. At the time, she hadn't heard clearly. Seeing that they knew the password to the villa, she thought they were sent by Sir and didn't ask questions. Willow sneered coldly. Final belongings. Good for you, George. Getting even more dramatic, she bit her lip and immediately called Louise, shouting into the phone. Get over here, now. 20 minutes later, Louise rushed into the courtyard. President Lou, where is George? Willow's gaze was heavy and cold, her voice like icy blades. I remember you said at the hospital that he contacted you. Louise hadn't expected that Willow called him over so urgently because of Mr. Wong. He froze briefly and answered. It wasn't Mr. Wong who contacted me. Then who? Willow bit her teeth hard, her sharp eyes boring into Louise. Don't think I don't know you and he have always been close behind my back. What? Now you're covering for him. No wonder Louise had been disappearing frequently these past few days. Turns out George had called him away. Louise. Willow's voice dropped dangerously low. Don't forget who you work for. Tell me right now where he went, what he asked you to hide. If you can't explain clearly, pack your things and get out. Louise grew more confused by the second. Wasn't it President Lou herself who said not to bother her about Mr. Wong's matters? He pondered for a long moment before finally realizing Willow didn't know yet. She didn't know that Mr. Wong had already died. Louise's expression turned complicated, and after a long silence, he spoke with difficulty. President Lou, the call that day was from the traffic police. The car that collided with Mr. Ito's belonged to Mr. Wong. Mr. Wong died on the spot. Chapter 7. Willow suddenly looked up at him. What did you say? The darkness in her eyes was so intense that it made Louise feel a chill. 3 days ago, the project in the Eastern District was rushing to finalize the contract. I couldn't reach you, so I had no choice but to call Mr. Wong. Louise explained. I didn't expect Mr. Wong would show up with Mr. Ito. Right at the entrance, the accident happened. The smoke was too thick at the time. I didn't even notice the license plate number. He also hadn't realized that while they were anxiously taking Makoto to the hospital, George had been standing not far away, watching. These past few days, Louise had been tormented with guilt. It was the first time he had ever let private matters interfere with work. Willow said nothing, her face covered with a layer of icy frost. No, impossible. It couldn't have been George. Wasn't he just throwing a tantrum with her? Why would he have gone to the company? Louise found Willow's presence increasingly terrifying and cautiously called out. President Lou, Mr. Wong's funeral arrangements have already been completed. The report showed he passed away half an hour after the accident. Before he could finish, Willow shoved him hard. I told you to stop talking, she shouted. Impossible. George can't be dead. Willow suddenly broke away from him, staggering away in her high heels. Louise watched her stumbling figure, a sudden realization dawning in his heart, but it was already too late. He sighed deeply and muttered to himself. President Lou, if only you had realized sooner. Mr. Wong's body has already been cremated. You'll never find him again. Willow refused to believe George was dead, yet she didn't know where to find him either. She drove aimlessly for a long time. At a red light, she slammed on the brakes. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that her palms began to hurt from the pressure. George, where are you? She knew George was an orphan, who had worked his way up through school, living on odd jobs. He had no family at all. Without her, he had nowhere to go. Willow took a deep breath and picked up her constantly vibrating phone. Louise had sent several messages and photos, George's death certificate and cremation confirmation. President Lou, if you don't believe me, you can request the surveillance footage from the traffic police. They have the complete video from the accident site, as well as Mr. Wong's autopsy report. Mr. Wong, he really is gone. My condolences. Willow's breathing grew heavy. She angrily threw the phone onto the passenger seat, floored the gas pedal, and sped toward the traffic bureau. Everything was exactly as Louise said. The scene footage, the death confirmation, the cremation procedures. No mistakes. But Willow still refused to believe it. That was George, the man who had loved her for 5 years, who, just a few days ago, was still desperately trying to get back together with her. How could he just die? How could he? A massive wave of panic suddenly swept over Willow, like someone had gouged out a hole in her heart, leaving it hollow and bottomless. As she sat dazed in the empty living room, her phone rang. Miss Lu, Mr. Ito has been experiencing severe headaches. Painkillers haven't helped. Can you come over? Willow's eyes flickered. Only then did she remember Makoto. She pulled herself together and drove back to the hospital. Makoto's face was pale, and when he saw Willow appear at the door, his expression became even weaker. Willow, why the sudden headache? She asked. Willow walked over and sat at the edge of the bed. Makoto immediately reached out and clutched her hand tightly. Maybe it's an after effect. We'll have to wait for the test results to know for sure. Weren't you going home to get a change of clothes? Where are your clothes? Willow froze. Only then did she remember her original intention. Her brown eyes flickered slightly as she said, I heard you weren't feeling well, so I rushed back. I forgot. Makoto lowered his head, leaned closer, and sniffed lightly near her ear, murmuring in a low, teasing voice, You went all the way back home and didn't even bother to shower first. Normally, Willow would have enjoyed such flirtatious teasing. But today, for some reason, it only made her feel restless and annoyed. She raised her hand and gently pushed him away. Patience thinning, she said. If you're not feeling well, just get some sleep, okay? Makoto's face stiffened slightly, but he quickly wrapped an arm naturally around her shoulders, whispering, Are you planning to leave again? Before Willow could respond, a knock came at the door. A man in a suit walked in, speaking in a businesslike tone. Hello, Miss Lu. I am the attorney who was representing Mr. Wang in his divorce proceedings and the handling of his estate. Chapter 8. The lawyer took out a thick stack of documents and placed them in front of Willow. Miss Lu, these are the assets Mr. Wang left behind before his passing. Willow stared intently at the stack of A4 papers, saying nothing. Instead, it was Makoto who reacted strongly, his eyes wide with shock. Before his passing, George, the lawyer glanced at him and kindly explained. 3 days ago, Mr. Wang passed away in a car accident. Based on his power of attorney, I am authorized to handle all matters regarding his estate. Most of Mr. Wang's assets have been donated to charitable foundations. The remainder is rightfully to be returned to you, Miss Lu. In addition, given Mr. Wang's death, the mandatory divorce cooling-off period has automatically ended. Your marriage is thus legally dissolved. You are now officially single. After delivering this information, the lawyer politely nodded. If you have no other questions, I will take my leave. Willow remained silent, like a soulless shell. Willow. Makoto pressed his lips together, his voice soft and comforting. Since it's already happened, don't be too sad. George wouldn't want to see you like this. The woman still didn't move. Her naturally drooping hand had unknowingly clenched into a tight fist, her knuckles turning white. Makoto looked at the side of her face, his mind swirling. So, she had already divorced that man. Then why hadn't she told him? Was it because, deep down, she was still clinging to hope, hoping for a reconciliation? Makoto stared at Willow, feeling a complex mix of emotions, yet, oddly, also a faint satisfaction. What good are fantasies? What good is regret? George was dead. He had died 3 days ago in that car crash. Makoto's lips curled into a brief, fleeting smirk. He thought Willow's despair was just temporary, that she was simply still in shock over George's death. After all, though Willow had shared 5 years of marriage with George, Makoto believed she had real feelings for him, not George. However, reality soon made Makoto want to grit his teeth in frustration. Even though Willow stayed at the hospital with him, she grew increasingly quiet and detached. She would often sit there, staring blankly in one direction for long periods. She didn't bother with her makeup anymore, losing the polished, elegant appearance she once had. Makoto couldn't take it anymore. Forcing a smile, he said, Willow, I'll be discharged tomorrow. Why don't you freshen up a bit and let's go have a nice meal together? I'm seriously about to puke from eating hospital food every day. The last sentence was meant to sound playful, almost like a joke, but Willow didn't react at all. Her gaze just shifted slightly as she asked, Freshen up? Makoto's smile stiffened a little. Yeah, you know, take a shower, change into a pretty dress, put on some makeup. He reached out and gently pinched her cheek, trying to keep the atmosphere light. Look at you, taking care of me these few days. You've lost all your spark. Can't you bring back my elegant beauty? Willow pulled his hand away without much thought. What she blurted out next seemed almost like an instinctive reflex. In the past, all my clothes were prepared by George. He had a great eye for matching outfits, picking clothes, jewelry, even fragrances. Everything he chose smelled wonderful. For the past 5 years, Willow had been used to George's care. From everyday meals to major company projects, that man had become so much a part of her life that he was like air, invisible yet everywhere. But now, he was dead, and before dying, he hadn't even left her a single word. Makoto's face darkened, disbelief flashing across his eyes. Then what do you mean by that now? George is gone. No matter how much you talk about him, he won't hear you anymore. Do you understand? He grabbed Willow's shoulders tightly, almost as if trying to shake her awake. You need to live your life, Willow. The person beside you now is me. So what if George is dead? I'm still here. Or do you want to break up with me? Do you want to die along with him? Chapter 9. Seeing the men growing more and more agitated, Willow's gaze remained calm and unruffled. She let out a self-deprecating laugh. Makoto, she said softly. I'm not thinking about anything. I just need time to sort out my feelings. That day, if I had just walked a few steps closer, if I had just taken one look, I would have seen George, gravely injured. I could have fought for him, bought him more time. He might not have died. We all owe him. After saying this, Willow once again pulled away from Makoto. Her movements were light, almost gentle, but the words she spoke were cruel beyond measure. Makoto, tomorrow I'll send someone to pick you up from the hospital. Your body is fine now, and there are things at the company that need my attention. Get some good rest. Willow. Makoto reached out, trying to grab her. But all he caught was the edge of her sleeve. Panic welled uncontrollably in his chest. Willow, please, don't leave. Okay. The woman didn't look back. The sound of her high heels grew fainter and fainter until it vanished from the hospital ward, according to Makoto's expectations. Now that George was dead, Willow should have taken him back to the South Bay villa. Then he could carefully plan a proposal, a sky-high diamond ring, a beautiful wedding dress, a grand wedding ceremony. But not only did Willow not give him any more chances to see her, she instead sank deeper and deeper into her guilt over George. Completely unable to pull herself out, Makoto waited for a week. When he could no longer bear it, he simply ran to Lu Corporation to block her at work. For 3 days straight, he didn't even catch a glimpse of Willow. Where is your president, Lu? He demanded at the reception. I'm her boyfriend. Let me in. The receptionist didn't recognize him. Hearing this, she almost laughed. Nowadays, men are so shameless. If you were really President Lu's boyfriend, you wouldn't need me to contact her for you. Sir, if you don't have an appointment, please leave immediately. Don't disrupt our work. Otherwise, we'll have to call security. Makoto still wanted to argue. But then he caught sight of Luis walking out from inside. He immediately rushed over. Luis, where's Willow? Luis was startled by the sudden figure. Mr. Ito, he greeted politely, sighing. President Lu isn't at the company. Makoto hadn't slept well for days. His skin looked terrible, and his bloodshot eyes betrayed his desperation. He had no other options left. Anna didn't want him anymore. If he couldn't even hold on to Willow, what future did he have? Makoto clutched Luis like a drowning man grabbing a piece of driftwood, as if afraid he would run away. Then where is she? Luis felt a bit of pity for him. Besides, given President Lu's current state, having someone who could persuade her might not be a bad thing. President Lu should be at Mr. Wang's cemetery. If you want to find her, you can try there. The largest cemetery in City A was located in the southern suburbs. Willow had been going there for days, carrying a bottle of alcohol each time, simply sitting quietly by the grave, occasionally speaking a few words to the photo of the man. It was a scene that evoked endless sighs. When George was alive, she barely spared him a glance. Now that he was dead, she clung to his photo day after day, drowning in memories. George, do you think I'm ridiculous? The man in the photo smiled faintly, as if silently agreeing with her. Willow lowered her gaze, the self-mocking curve of her lips growing increasingly bitter. She picked up the bottle and desperately poured more alcohol into her mouth. Suddenly, a hand reached out and snatched the whiskey bottle away from her. An angry voice roared, "If you really don't want to live, then go ahead and die. At least people would think you died for George, but putting on this half-dead act, who are you doing it for?" Chapter 10. Willow looked up and saw that it was her best friend, Sophia. She let out a careless laugh, reaching out to snatch the bottle back. "You're really free today, huh? What are you doing here meddling in my business? If I didn't come, were you planning to drink yourself to death here?" Sophia, annoyed, kicked her lightly and glanced at the whiskey bottle Willow had grabbed back. "Do you even know how strong that stuff is? Drinking like this, how many lives do you think you have?" She had just returned from a month-long business trip in Europe, only to hear about what had happened between Willow and George, a perfectly good couple, ruined because of some men who suddenly popped up out of nowhere. It really left her at a loss for words. Originally, Sophia had come here planning to scold Willow, but seeing her like this, the words stuck in her throat. Willow's eyes were already a little glassy. The alcohol was helping dull her pain, if only temporarily. But more importantly, Sophia, Willow said hoarsely, staring at the bottle in her hand, "Did you know? Every time I drink, I can see him." Sophia was speechless. "George tells me he doesn't blame me. He tells me to live well." Sophia let out a cold laugh. "You sure do have a vivid imagination. Willow took another swig from the bottle and said faintly, I know it was me who wronged him. I always took his love for granted. Even his death. I can't escape responsibility. So this is how you're trying to atone. Sophia narrowed her eyes at her, gritting her teeth. If I were him, seeing you like this, drunk and pathetic, I would just wish you would get lost and stop desecrating my memory. Willow flinched slightly, pain spreading visibly across her face. Is that so? Otherwise, what else could it be? Sophia grabbed both of Willow's hands and yanked her up. You think this is repentance? No, you're just trying to make yourself feel better. Don't push everything onto George. He never asked you to do anything. This is all your own selfish guilt. Willow allowed herself to be pulled up, her whole body slack, like an empty shell. She turned her head to look at the men in the photo, so familiar, yet suddenly so distant, and in that moment, she realized she had never truly understood him. Sophia shoved her away, her own emotions in turmoil. She had grown up with Willow. She knew everything about what had happened with George, when George was courting Willow. It was practically an open secret. Everyone knew how deeply he loved her. When they finally got together, Sophia had once joked with Willow, it's rare to meet a man so sincere. Settle down. You two will grow old together. But what happened? The moment that Ito guy came back, Willow threw everything away. She even ended up costing George his life. If you liked that Makoto guy so much, and you were so eager to find a backup, then you should have been happy with your new life. Don't try to have it both ways. You already chose. Don't pretend to be the victim now. Willow didn't move. Her fallen posture seemed shrouded in an inescapable darkness. After a long silence, her voice rasped out low and broken. I thought I didn't love him. She had thought it was just habit. Habit of having George around. Habit of being taken care of. With George there, every complicated problem seemed solvable. But when he was gone, she realized his presence was everywhere. In every corner of her life, she was scared to see him. But even more desperate to see him again. I regret it so much, Willow choked out, grabbing at her hair in despair. Sophia, I really regret it. It's all my fault. If I could trade my life for his. Could he come back? It was the first time Sophia had ever seen Willow like this. All the harsh words she had prepared died in her throat. She sighed heavily and sat down beside her. Talking like that is useless nonsense. If you really cared even a little bit about him, then finish what he left unfinished. Live properly. Become a decent person. And also, Sophia's tone sharpened. I saw the surveillance footage from your company's front entrance. Don't you think it's a little strange? Willow abruptly looked up. What do you mean? The car accident was suspicious. Sophia frowned slightly. Knowing Willow, being caught up in it, had been blind to the truth, she spoke directly. At such a large intersection, on a two-way, one-lane road, George was driving normally. So why would he crash into another car? Willow's throat tightened, plunging her into a long, heavy silence. Before long, Sophia received a call from her company. Seeing that Willow's emotions had somewhat stabilized, Sophia said, endlessly drowning yourself in sorrow won't help. If George were alive, he would only feel his efforts had been wasted. You need to seriously think about what you're going to do next. After Sophia left, the cemetery returned to silence. Willow turned her gaze toward the tombstone. The cloudiness in her eyes had completely faded. George, she whispered. Can you point me in the right direction? The wind blew softly, rustling the leaves. But no answer came. Less than 10 seconds later, footsteps approached from a distance, growing steadily nearer. Willow's heart began pounding uncontrollably, a strange sense of anticipation rising in her chest. It took her a while before she stiffly turned her head. Makoto was standing there, clearly seeing the flash of hope that lit up in her eyes, and then quickly extinguished. Makoto's breathing grew uneven, but he composed himself as best he could and walked toward her. I heard from Luis that you might be here, he said. Willow withdrew her gaze. I told you to rest well, didn't I? To be honest, she didn't know how to face Makoto right now. Did she love him? Yes, she had been sure for years that she loved him, but after George's death, everything she had thought so clear suddenly blurred. Even she couldn't tell anymore who it was she truly loved. Makoto placed the bouquet he brought in front of George's tombstone and said gently, I never really looked at him properly before. Today, I realized, George was actually quite handsome. Willow replied instinctively. He was always good. Makoto's face paled, and he clumsily changed the subject. Willow, you must have been here for a long time, right? Maybe you should go back now. Seeing her puzzled look, he smiled and added, it's cold here. What if you catch a cold? Willow only then noticed that Makoto was wearing very little. She frowned and said, why are you dressed so lightly? You just got out of the hospital, you should be more careful. Because of her concern, Makoto's heart swelled with joy. I'm worried about you too, he said. Let's go back together. Okay. Willow originally wanted to send him away, but seeing his worn-out face, she couldn't bring herself to say it. All right, she agreed. Let's go back together. Once they were in the car, Willow recalled what Sophia had said earlier and casually asked, Makoto, do you still remember what happened during the car accident? She remembered clearly. Makoto had lost control of the wheel after someone sideswiped him, causing him to veer into oncoming traffic. Makoto froze, not expecting her to bring this up. I was too panicked. I don't remember anything clearly. Why do you ask? Willow turned her head and, seeing his flustered expression, couldn't help but laugh. She reached out and poked his cheek. Relax, she said. I was just asking. If you don't remember, it's fine. Anyway, the traffic police had retained surveillance footage. She could always get a copy later and study it slowly. Makoto watched her thoughtful expression and felt a wave of unease deep inside. Are you suspecting that someone deliberately targeted George? Just a suspicion, Willow said quietly. Sophia pointed it out to me earlier. That road is wide, and there's never been an accident there before. But that day, there was a chain collision involving several cars. George died, and you were seriously injured, but everyone else walked away without a scratch. Thinking about it carefully, it's worth questioning. Makoto let out a soft, nervous laugh. In the flickering sunlight, his expression was hard to make out. He said, I doubt it. Who would bother doing something so thankless? Willow only smiled faintly, not answering. She didn't want to burden him with conspiracy theories. Besides, nothing had been confirmed yet. There was no need to say too much. For the rest of the drive, neither of them spoke again. Willow dropped Makoto off at his place. Get some good rest. If anything comes up, call me. Focus on getting better. All right. Makoto nodded. And where are you going? I'm heading to the traffic police station, Willow replied. She turned her head to look at him, holding his gaze seriously for a long moment. Makoto, she said. Once I get to the bottom of this, we'll be together properly. Makoto lowered his head, his long bangs hiding the look in his eyes. He said in a low voice, drive safe. Get some rest. Good night. Standing by the roadside, Makoto watched the taillights of her car grow smaller and smaller. His hands, hanging by his sides, clenched tightly, without even realizing it. Once it's all cleared up, we'll be together. But if you really do find out the truth, you might never be able to be with me again. Chapter 11. Willow carefully reviewed all the available video footage again, including the cameras at the company building entrance and the ones at the shops across the street. But the current problem was that the van that hit Makoto was a vehicle with fake license plates. After the accident, the driver immediately fled the scene upon realizing the situation and has not been found since. After hearing her concerns, the traffic police officer's expression immediately became serious. Miss Liu, please rest assured, we will immediately transfer the case to the Criminal Investigation Department and have them get to the bottom of this as soon as possible. All right. Thank you for your hard work. Dragging her exhausted body home, Willow found that night had already fallen. The dimly lit villa was completely silent, eerily quiet. It was only then that she belatedly realized, ever since she mentioned divorce, George had thoroughly removed all traces of himself from her life, whether at home or at the company. She could no longer find anything related to him. Willow, like a puppet that had lost its soul, stood in the middle of the living room and, finally breaking down under the eerie silence, squatted down, covering her face as she crumbled completely. Days went by, and in the blink of an eye, half a year had passed. The person responsible for the accident was eventually caught, but it turned out he was merely the owner of an abandoned car factory. The reason he fled the scene was simply because he was driving a car with fake plates. Although there was now a conclusion, it wasn't the one Willow had hoped for. Makoto comforted her. Isn't this a good thing? Would you really have preferred if something more had been uncovered? This car accident was just an accident. The driver has paid the price he was supposed to. Willow, let's move forward together. Okay. Over the past 6 months, Willow would still show concern for him and occasionally have meals with him, but she never clearly defined their relationship, which was driving Makoto almost crazy. If he had known things would end up like this, then what was the point of everything he had done after returning to the country? Willow pinched her forehead and said in a low voice, Makoto, you should go home first. I want some time alone. Makoto had no choice but to leave reluctantly, but in his heart, he had already made a firm decision. There would be an important gala in 2 days. Willow had already promised to attend it with him. When the time came, he would make sure she officially acknowledged him, publicly, as her fiancé. The gala was hosted by the Chan Corporation, and the guest list included only the wealthy and powerful, virtually covering the entire upper class of City A. Makoto had long since dressed up and was waiting for the driver to pick up Willow and bring her over. At 7 o'clock in the evening, the doorbell rang. His eyebrows lifted slightly as he walked over to open the door. Standing outside was Luis. Makoto's expression shifted slightly. Where's President Liu, Mr. Ito? President Liu had to meet with President Chan first to discuss a project. She asked me to pick you up. I see. Makoto smiled lightly. All right, let's go. On the surface, he appeared understanding, but inwardly, he was quite unhappy. What could be so urgent that she had to go first? Couldn't she have swung by to pick him up? Willow, have you really changed? While Makoto was lost in his tangled thoughts, Willow had already arrived at the venue. The Liu Corporation and the Chan Corporation were about to collaborate on a major project. She had come early today specifically to discuss the project details with David. A waiter led her to the second-floor lounge and politely said, President Liu, President Chan is inside. Willow nodded and knocked on the door before entering. David, upon seeing her, warmly greeted her. Finally, you're here. I was just about to call you. Sorry, there was a bit of traffic. No worries. Come in. Have a seat. Both of them were straightforward people. After a few pleasantries, they quickly got down to business, discussing all the potential issues that might arise with the project. David smiled and said, I've never had any doubts about working with President Liu, but this time I've also invited a friend to join us. I hope you don't mind. Willow replied. Of course not. Any friend of President Chan's is welcome. I knew you'd be fine with it. David clapped his hands happily, clearly in a great mood. Rest assured, she has been a leading figure in the industry abroad. It took me a lot of effort to convince her to come back. I'll introduce you two later. All right. I look forward to it. After finishing their important discussion, Willow glanced at her watch. The time was about right. President Chan, I'll head downstairs now. See you later. As she left the lounge, she pulled out her phone, preparing to call Makoto. Her gaze inadvertently swept past a corner ahead, and in that instant, Willow's pupils dilated sharply. Her eyes filled with disbelief. Chapter 12. Over the past half-year, Willow had dreamed of that person every single day, so even if it was just a fleeting glimpse, she could still recognize him immediately. In the brief moment she stood stunned, the man had already disappeared. Without caring about anything else, Willow lifted her feet and chased after him. Even though it had only been a short while, and the distance wasn't far, it was as if the man had vanished into thin air. Willow stood at the end of the corridor, looking left and right, not knowing which direction to go. Her breathing quickened, and her chest heaved violently. George, I know it's you. Come out. Come out. Let's talk things through face to face. I beg you. Come out. The long and empty corridor echoed back her tearful voice, but no one answered. A server downstairs, hearing the noise, hurried up and was startled at the sight of Willow's disheveled appearance. He asked with concern, Miss, do you need any help? Willow gave him a glance. Did you see a man in a white suit, about 6'1", very handsome, very distinguished? The server froze for a second. Downstairs, before he could finish speaking, the woman in front of him disappeared like a gust of wind. The server was even more bewildered. I was trying to say, there are 2 or 3 gentlemen like that downstairs. At this moment, Willow had completely stopped thinking. There was only one thought in her mind: find him. Find him. No matter how long he had been hiding, no matter what reason he had for appearing today, she would not let him run away again. The banquet hall downstairs was already filled with people. Greetings and small talk flowed incessantly among the guests. Willow's bloodshot eyes scanned the room in a circle, but she could not find the person she was looking for. Some acquaintances came up to greet her, but she ignored them completely. She didn't know how much time had passed. Just as Willow was about to give up, her gaze suddenly froze on the dessert table. A man dressed in a white tuxedo, tall and lean, his black hair neatly styled, was standing there with his back to her. Even without seeing his face, she inexplicably knew who he was. Her heartbeat quickened. Willow's fingertips trembled slightly. It took a long time before she lifted her foot and walked toward him. George. The moment she called out the name, the man turned around. What do you want? Willow stared at the completely unfamiliar face in front of her and instinctively took a half step back. How could it be? How could it not be him? Impossible. Her look of disbelief made Oscar feel like he was looking at a lunatic. He secretly rolled his eyes and said impatiently, Miss, can you straighten your tongue before you speak? If there's nothing else, I'm leaving. My sister's still waiting for me. Willow, still overwhelmed by shock, didn't respond. Oscar unabashedly gave her a once-over, then walked away with his cake. Returning to the VIP lounge, he put down the plate in his hand, flopped onto the sofa, and complained. Geez, sis, was that really the kind of woman George used to like? She looks like she's missing a few screws. The woman on the sofa was looking at documents on her laptop and had no time to bother with him. Sis. Oscar walked over and snatched the laptop out of her hands. I'm talking to you. The woman's face was breathtakingly beautiful, her features sharp and deep-set, exuding an icy allure. She frowned slightly and said, Give me back the laptop. Only if you pay attention to me. Anna lazily gave him a glance without speaking. Oscar still felt a little guilty, so he sulkily handed the laptop back, muttering under his breath. Aren't you even a little curious? I heard George used to really like her. She's good-looking and has a nice voice, but in my opinion, that woman's just an airhead. She's not even worth one of your hairs. He rambled on, and it wasn't until this point that Anna lazily responded. So, she's not even a real opponent. I've never taken that kind of person seriously. So cocky. Oscar pouted and sat down beside her. Suddenly, he grinned and leaned closer. But sis, do George and I really look that much alike? I just passed by casually and scared Lou stiff. Anna hummed in agreement. It's best you don't mention this to George. Be careful. He might beat you up. Oscar and George were about the same height and build. As long as Oscar slightly mimicked George's demeanor, his back view could easily be mistaken for George's. So boring. Oscar propped up his chin and sighed. I thought there'd be some exciting drama of getting back at a cheating ex. But George is just too kind-hearted. He'd never do something like that. Anna smiled faintly. Her stunning face became even more breathtaking with that smile. He's not kind, she said. Then what is he? Lazy. Anna replied. Oscar blinked in confusion, then pouted. You understand George better than anyone, but how come after all this time you still haven't won him over? Chapter 13. Anna's face stiffened. She casually grabbed a throw pillow and hurled it at him. You little brat. You just had to bring that up. Huh. Oscar finally managed to score a small win and laughed so hard he could barely stand. Downstairs, Willow snapped back to her senses and wanted to chase after him to ask for more information. She had just taken a step forward when Makoto, who had just arrived, grabbed her arm. Willow, I called you several times just now. Why didn't you hear me? Seeing the displeasure on his face, Willow felt a little guilty. Sorry, Makoto. Just now, I saw someone I knew and wanted to go over and say hello. What kind of acquaintance could pull her attention away like that? Makoto was suspicious inside but maintained a considerate expression. Let's go together then. Just now, President Lee was also asking where you were. We can meet him together. Willow frowned slightly, but thinking about how she hadn't spent much time with Makoto lately, she felt a little bad. She suppressed her previous thoughts for now. All right, let's go. After making the rounds and greeting everyone, Makoto's face was practically blooming with smiles. In the world of the wealthy and elite, no one was better at saying pleasant things and guessing about each other's partners. And his identity was an open secret. Mr. Ito and President Liu really are a perfect match. Our wedding bells on the horizon. When the time comes, don't forget to send us an invitation. Such comments flowed endlessly, and Willow never once denied them. Makoto was secretly delighted. Just then, the host of the event, David, came out holding a glass of wine. After making rounds of pleasant speeches to the crowd, he walked straight toward Willow. Willow, I've been looking all over for you. Remember I said I wanted to introduce you to a friend? Willow smiled. Shouldn't I wait until President Chan is done being busy? David laughed heartily. Come on, she's right over there. No one objected, so Makoto, still holding Willow's arm, went along with her. He was still feeling smug inside when he saw a familiar figure, and his smile completely disappeared. David didn't notice anything amiss and continued enthusiastically with the introduction. This is the industry leader I told you about, Anna. Anna has been a top figure in smart AI technology overseas. Her company has secured countless patents. Whether in unmanned aerial vehicles or derivative technologies, they're basically leading the industry. If it weren't for some old connections, and me begging her countless times, she wouldn't have come back to get involved with our little businesses. Anna raised her eyebrows slightly and said modestly, President Chan, you flatter me. It's my honor to be able to work with you. Miss Sue is becoming more and more humble. David laughed. We're all friends here. No need for such formalities. Willow said nothing, her burning gaze fixed on the woman opposite her. She had never expected that the friend David mentioned would turn out to be Anna. Why had she suddenly returned? Could it be? Willow shifted her gaze slightly, catching the man next to her in the corner of her eye. His face was pale, full of disbelief. Makoto gripped her hand tightly, so hard that he seemed to have forgotten her existence altogether. At that moment, David also sensed something was off. His eyes flicked between the few of them and asked, Anna, President Liu, wait, do you know each other? Anna looked at the two across from her with a half smile and said languidly, President Liu and I were schoolmates. We're not particularly close, but we do know each other. As for Mr. Ito, her smile widened a bit more. We used to be quite good friends for a while. David was no fool. Hearing this, he immediately understood everything. In that case, I'll leave you old friends to catch up. He chuckled, waved for a waiter to bring drinks over, and said, I have to go greet some more guests. We'll talk business later. Once David left, a strange and heavy silence filled the lounge. Makoto even felt like the air had grown thinner. Unable to bear it any longer, he lifted his head and stared at the woman in front of him. Through gritted teeth, he asked, Why are you here? Anna remained languid and calm. If Mr. Ito can be here, why can't I? You're supposed to be in the United States. You said you would never come back. Why didn't you just stay there? Why are you showing up in front of me now? As Makoto spoke, his eyes turned red. He thought of all those days in the past, and how this woman had once rejected him so decisively. She said she didn't love him, and just like that, she didn't. And now, without a word, she was back. Did she really think he would shamelessly throw himself at her again? Chapter 14. Makoto was filled with resentment, yet he had no idea that, in Anna's eyes, his appearance was only puzzling and a little ridiculous. Mr. Ito, could it be that you've misunderstood something? Anna said casually. I came back purely for business. If it weren't for running into you here today, I wouldn't even have known you were in City A. Anna curled her lips into a smile, playing the role of a flirtatious heiress with effortless mastery. Besides, you're standing next to someone else right now. Isn't it a little rude to rush over and declare your lingering feelings for me? It was only then that Makoto realized he was still holding Willow's hand. His face flushed pale and then dark again. His heart trembled slightly, and he murmured, Willow. Willow, however, showed no major reaction. Her deep brown eyes were unreadable. No one could tell what she was thinking. She patted Makoto's hand reassuringly, then raised her gaze to Anna and said, I didn't expect Miss Sue to be Mr. Ito's friend, but in a way, that makes things easier. At least we won't have to waste extra words, don't you think? Anna spread her hands in a playful manner and said with interest, Since President Liu has said so, of course. As for the past, Willow narrowed her eyes slightly and said in a low voice, It's already over. There's no need for Miss Sue to make things difficult for Makoto. Make things difficult? Anna chuckled, her deep gaze resting on Makoto for a moment. That glance stabbed into Makoto's eyes like a needle, making his chest tighten uncontrollably. What exactly was Anna trying to do? However, his worry was unnecessary. Anna said nothing more and quickly shifted the conversation back to the business project. Once they switched into professional mode, the two women conversed smoothly and expertly. Makoto sat on the side, feeling as if he were sitting on pins and needles, watching these two of the most important women in his life. After about 10 minutes, when they had almost finished discussing work matters and Willow was preparing to leave with Makoto, the door to the lounge suddenly swung open from the outside. A man, dressed in a white tuxedo, stepped in, holding a glass of champagne. His casual, slightly impatient expression carried a sense of disdain. Sis, are you done yet? This party is so boring I'm dying. George has already come to pick us up. Can we go home now? As soon as he finished speaking, he noticed there were two unfamiliar people in the room. Willow and Makoto were both staring at him. It was him? Willow thought of the back figure she had seen earlier, and her breathing faltered slightly. Makoto, on the other hand, felt a wave of relief wash over him. He had always known that Anna had a spoiled younger brother, bad-tempered and stubborn. Since he was here to fetch Anna, she would definitely leave. Finally, this hellish scene could come to an end. Anna stepped forward slightly, just enough to block Willow's view. She wore a polite but distant smile and said, President Liu, let's leave it at that for today. We'll excuse ourselves now. Next time, we'll invite President Chan to discuss things in more detail. Anna and Oscar left after a short farewell. Willow suddenly snapped out of her daze. She shook Makoto's hand off and chased after them. Wait, what had that man just said? George. He said George. At that moment, Willow's mind was consumed by only one thought, but by the time she sprinted to the entrance, all she saw was the endless stream of cars on the road. The Sue siblings were nowhere to be seen. Willow tilted her head up, struggling to catch her breath. She stood by the roadside for a long time, overwhelmed by a flood of emotions. Was she going crazy? Why did it still feel like he was alive? Willow gave a bitter laugh and turned back in defeat. At that very moment, in a passing car behind her, George's smiling face could clearly be seen. Chapter 15. I was driving while listening to Oscar talk about the amusing things that happened at the banquet. I'm telling you, those people are just too boring, flattering back and forth, all just to climb the social ladder. But the desserts were really good. Oh no, I even meant to bring you a little cake, but I forgot. Although Oscar had grown up as a rich kid, he was, at heart, a complete foodie. The light ahead turned red. I stepped on the brakes and turned to glance at him, smiling as I said, I already had dinner. If you like, next time we can go get something to eat. Just the two of us. Oscar nodded eagerly and blurted out, George, you're too good. I saw that toad today. She's not even worthy of carrying your shoes. The words had barely fallen when the car fell silent. Oscar realized he had said the wrong thing and slapped his mouth shut. The smile on my face faded. When the light turned green, I turned back and continued driving. Anna, frowning, shot her brother a glance, just about to speak, when the man in the driver's seat said lightly, It's not about who is worthy or not. Everything that happened was the price I paid for my own seriousness. That's why now, I don't love Willow anymore, and I have no regrets. Oscar quickly chimed in. Yes, George, you're the best, I chuckled and said. You don't have to be so cautious. Since I decided to come back, running into Willow sooner or later was inevitable. It's really not that big of a deal. Oscar and Anna exchanged a glance, then tacitly looked away. I had indeed long since prepared myself to meet Willow again, but I hadn't expected that day would come so soon. Over the weekend, after finishing all her work, Anna invited me to see the latest movie release, a Hong Kong thriller. Good reviews, you'll probably like it. I had just finished jogging and was still sweaty all over. Let me go upstairs and take a quick shower. Wait for me a bit. Anna hummed in acknowledgement and stretched out her hand. Naturally, I handed her the towel and took a step away, asking, "Where's Oscar? Isn't he coming with us?" Anna's eyes flickered slightly. He made plans to watch a soccer game with some friends. Oscar had spent most of his time abroad. How could he have any real friends here? I lifted the corners of my mouth but didn't expose her lie. I'll be quick. 15 minutes. The man's tall, handsome figure disappeared around the corner. Anna looked down at the towel in her hands and smiled dazzlingly. She had never been in a hurry. Letting him slowly get used to her seemed like a good idea. I came downstairs on time. To my surprise, the woman downstairs had also changed outfits, and coincidentally, her inner layer matched the color of my jacket. Raising an eyebrow, I joked as I walked over. "Did you do this on purpose?" Anna didn't know what I would wear, but she still raised her eyebrows and said, "It's the basic etiquette of a pursuer. Don't expose my little tricks." I sighed inwardly, just with Anna's looks. Even if she said the moon came out during the day, every man would probably nod in agreement. No wonder Makoto had been so obsessed with her back then. Anna had booked a nearby movie theater. By evening, the shopping mall was packed. She checked the time and asked softly, "After the movie, shall we grab a late-night snack? Are you hungry?" I smiled helplessly. "Miss Sue, we had dinner just 2 hours ago." "Oh," Anna put on a feigned look of sudden realization. She leaned in a little closer. Then, "Dear Mr. Wong, may I offer you a cup of milk tea, a slice of cake, or a bucket of popcorn?" Her exaggerated words, coming from her, carried a playful and mesmerizing tone. The corners of my mouth lifted uncontrollably. Playing along, I said, "No, thank you, miss. Of course, if you want something, I'd be happy to buy it for you." "Wow, Mr. Wong, you're not only handsome but also so gentle and gentlemanly. Thank you so much for your care." "All right, enough," I said, laughing, unable to keep up the act any longer, and playfully patted her. Anna's smiling eyes lingered on me for 2 seconds before she lazily stepped back. My view finally cleared up again, but just as I was about to relax my smile, I looked up and saw Willow and Makoto. Their faces were full of gloom and shock. "Willow, Makoto, long time no see." Chapter 16. Anna noticed the change in my expression and asked with concern, "What's wrong?" Following my gaze, she too saw the two people. She let out a soft laugh, casually resting one hand on mine, looking natural and fitting. "President Liu, Mr. Ito, what a coincidence." Willow ignored her completely. Her bloodshot eyes locked onto me. Inside, a storm was raging. It was him. It was really him. He was alive. At that moment, Willow felt as if the heart that had been dead for over half a year finally came back to life, beating fiercely. She swallowed hard, then took a big step toward me, grabbing my hand and dragging me aside. Anna's eyes flashed coldly. She had just started to move when the man's calm voice came. "I'll talk to her. Wait for me here." She lifted her hand slightly, then put it down again, maintaining her composed, regal demeanor. Makoto was left standing there, his face alternating between pale and flushed, not knowing how to react. He really didn't want to face Anna alone, at least not now. He had seen everything, the interaction between Anna and that man. Back when Makoto had pursued Anna for so long, she had always treated him casually, indifferently, never once making an effort to please him. But today, why was she willing to flirt, to try to make a man laugh? Why did it have to be George? Makoto had no choice but to admit, he was insanely jealous. Anna caught all the changes in his expression and crossed her arms, smiling faintly. "Is Mr. Ito worried about President Liu?" "Don't worry, our George wouldn't be interested in her." "Your George?" Makoto's fingernails dug sharply into his palm. "You and George are together?" Anna's brow moved slightly, but she didn't answer. "Anna, how could you?" Makoto hated her indifferent attitude with all his being, but there was nothing he could do about it. He took a deep breath, forcing himself not to think about the past. "If you and George are together, why didn't you stay with him in America? Why did you come back?" Anna stared at the face in front of her. She realized she had never really looked at him properly before, and now she found him truly ugly. She narrowed her eyes slightly. Her voice was emotionless. What? Mr. Ito, are you afraid of us coming back? Makoto's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? Nothing much. Anna didn't want to say more. She simply said, since we're back, naturally, we have things to do. It has nothing to do with Mr. Ito. Seeing that she had lowered her head and started looking at her phone, Makoto's unease grew stronger and stronger. It would be bad enough with just Anna. But George, he wasn't dead. He was back. What exactly were they planning? On the other side, Willow was asking me the same thing. The deserted corridor was quiet. The only sound was the woman's hoarse voice. I looked at her reddened eyes and felt absolutely nothing inside. It has nothing to do with you. How could it have nothing to do with me? We're husband and wife. Willow felt that the man standing before her now was completely unfamiliar. Like someone she was meeting for the first time. The feeling gave her a deep sense of helplessness. As if all her emotions were falling into a void. If you weren't dead, why didn't you contact me? Do you know how long I looked for you? George, you weren't like this before. In the past, no matter what I did, I would always inform her in advance. But she had rarely cared. You said it yourself, that was before. I said coldly. Willow, we are no longer husband and wife. Whether I live or die, whatever I choose to do, it has nothing to do with you. Willow's lips trembled for a long time before she managed to speak. No, we didn't divorce, but I died. Without me, naturally. There is no marriage. I found it almost laughable. You used to dream about growing old with Makoto, didn't you? Now your dream has come true. Why care about what happens to me? Oh, no, Willow, you're not really worried about me. You're only concerned about yourself. You just don't want to feel guilty. Now that you know I'm alive, you don't need to feel guilty anymore. Go live your life. Stop focusing on me. After saying all this, I turned to leave. Willow grabbed my hand. George, I didn't move. Only glanced at her coldly. It was that look, it actually made Willow afraid. Subconsciously, she let go. She lowered her voice and said, if there's anything you want, I can give it to you. Consider it compensation for everything between us. In truth, Willow had already given me plenty back then, but because I had been eager to leave and faked my death, most of the assets were donated to charity. Still, since she had offered, I looked into her eyes and said softly, I want to find the person who tried to kill me. Are you willing to help me? Chapter 17. Willow was stunned. She hadn't expected me to bring up that matter so suddenly. I suspected it back then too, but after extensive investigation from various parties, nothing unusual was found. Plus, the culprit behind the accident was sentenced. George, that car accident really was just an accident. Wanting to reopen the investigation now would just be a waste of effort. Even though I had gone abroad, Anna had always been helping me keep an eye on things in China. That's why I knew Willow had looked into the car accident. It truly surprised me, but only just surprised me. Nothing more. Seeing that I remained silent, Willow grew a little anxious. Let the past be the past. Let's start over. Okay. What she actually wanted to say was let's start over together. But looking at the unchanged expression on my face, the words stuck in her throat, unable to come out. I had no idea she had so many little hidden thoughts. I said expressionlessly, I know the culprit was sentenced. I also know he behaved well in prison. And his original 1-year sentence has already been reduced to 7 months. In other words, he's about to be released. Otherwise, I wouldn't have chosen to come back at this time. Willow frowned tightly. You still suspect him? Of course not. I chuckled softly but didn't explain further. Instead, I said with a cold voice, Willow, even though I no longer have feelings for you, I don't hate you either. I will definitely continue the investigation. If you're willing to help, that's good. If not, that's fine too. We'll go our separate ways. And owe each other nothing. Owe each other nothing. Those words stabbed deep into Willow's heart like a knife. She clenched her hands tightly. I'll help you. Whatever you want to investigate, I'll help. There was nothing more to say after that. I left through the fire escape without even glancing at Makoto and said directly to Anna, let's go inside. The movie's about to start. Anna's eyes softened. Okay. The two of us walked side by side, our figures harmonious and perfectly matched, like a couple meant to be. Makoto watched as we walked into the theater, his fists nearly crushing from the force of his grip. After picking up our movie tickets, the timing was just right. Anna and I entered the theater with the crowd. Even without looking, I could feel the person beside me occasionally glancing at me, hesitating as if struggling to hold back a question, her curiosity practically written on her face. I found it amusing inside. If you want to ask something, just ask. Miss Sue, what did she say to you? She said she was surprised I wasn't dead, and asked why, if I was alive. I didn't contact her. And what did you say? I told her that things between us are over, and whether I live or die, I no longer owe her any explanation. Anna was silent for 2 seconds, a faint sigh escaping her lips. She gently poked my face and said helplessly, Talk properly. Stop using that word so casually. I was speechless. But that's exactly what we said. And I didn't hide anything. I told her I had informed Willow of my intention to investigate the car accident. Anna frowned, clearly uneasy. Aren't you afraid she'll tell Makoto? Whether Makoto was involved or not, he's still a huge variable. I'm afraid she won't. I remained calm. If it really is Makoto, then once he knows we're investigating, he won't sit still. He'll take action, and when he does, he'll reveal his flaws. Wasn't it evidence we were struggling to find? Anna turned her head to look at my profile. Under the dim theater lighting, it looked exceptionally clear and alluring. This was who I truly was, seemingly indifferent to the world, but actually someone who would repay both kindness and grudges doubly. She lifted the corners of her mouth slightly and said softly, "All right, since Mr. Wong is so clever, I'll focus on being your backup. You fly freely, I'll protect you." Her soft, melodic voice brushed right against my ear, making an unexpected warmth surge in my chest. Chapter 18. Willow somehow found out where I lived and started sending things every day: flowers, cufflinks, suits, cars, you name it. She even sent a lawyer to transfer property titles to me. At first, I politely refused. Later, I realized the more I rejected her, the more enthusiastic she became, so I simply let her be. But Oscar wasn't so lucky. Since George wasn't working for now but still stuck to his daily workouts and outings, the only idle person left was Oscar. He felt like he had become a glorified deliverman. That day, Anna had just returned home when she saw Oscar coming in, arms full of bouquets of freesias. He threw them onto the floor casually. "Sis, can't you do something? Did you see that? That Lou woman is way too brazen. She's chasing your future husband right to your doorstep, and you're still this chill about it. Really don't care at all." He was truly about to lose his mind. At first, he thought it was kinda cute, women sending flowers to men, but day after day, who could stand it? Anna frowned but didn't bother responding to his taunts or complaints. She simply asked, "Where is he, George?" Oscar flopped onto the sofa, exhausted. "Upstairs. Just finished his workout, probably taking a shower." Anna's brows twitched slightly, and she headed upstairs. My room was at the far south end, not the master bedroom, but the view and natural light were even better. Anna knocked lightly on the door. It wasn't locked, so she pushed it open. The sound of running water came from the bathroom. I was indeed taking a shower. She stood in the middle of the room for a moment, hesitating whether to leave or stay. In the end, she chose to stay, sitting down casually and picking up a book from the coffee table. 1 page, 2 pages. The sound of the water made her heart beat faster. Anna took a deep breath, closed the book, and was just about to leave when the phone on the bed suddenly rang. She turned and walked over. The caller ID read, "Willow." Anna's expression darkened. She sneered coldly and picked up the phone. She answered, "George, did you like the flowers today? Are you free tonight? I found a great restaurant and wanted to invite you." "George isn't here." The cold voice instantly silenced the other end. Leaning lazily against the bed, Anna glanced toward the bathroom and said casually, "Seems like Lou Corporation is doing pretty well. President Lou is so free every day and still has money to send George all these gifts. But our storage room is about to overflow, so there's no need to send anything else." Willow's voice turned cold. "Why are you answering? Where's George?" "George is taking a shower." Silence. Anna continued lazily. "Anything else you need me to pass along? President Lou." Click. The call ended. Anna looked at the phone screen and let out a contemptuous laugh. When I came out, I saw her smug little action and asked with a smile, "Who was that?" "Willow," Anna said, locking eyes with me to check my reaction. Seeing no signs of anger, she continued, "I told her to stop sending stuff. Oscar is fed up receiving deliveries every day." I replied casually, drying my hair. "Oh." Anna put down the phone, took out the hairdryer, and started blow-drying my hair. "You're not angry?" "Why would I be?" I was confused. "I told her long ago to stop. If she won't listen and your words work better, that's even better." Anna froze for a moment, then smiled. After finishing drying my hair, she finally got to the main topic. She told me, "The driver from back then has already been released. When do you want to meet him?" I turned my head. "The sooner, the better." "Tonight." "Sure." I didn't want to waste a single minute. All the breakthroughs lay with that driver. If he was willing to talk, the mastermind would no longer be able to hide. Anna and I arrived at the abandoned car lot as night completely fell. There was a dim light behind the iron gate, making the whole scene eerie and desolate. We exchanged a glance. Anna stepped forward to knock on the door. First came the sound of barking dogs. Anna tensed, clenching her hands nervously. The next second, the man behind her took her hand and said, "Don't be afraid, I'm here," she murmured softly. "Okay." After a moment, we heard slow, shuffling footsteps from inside. The middle-aged man who opened the door wasn't tall, dressed in black. Seeing us, he instinctively froze. Just as he was about to shut the door, I moved swiftly and stopped him. Tom, I know you committed perjury. I already have enough evidence to prove you attempted murder. If you don't cooperate today, I'll hand everything over to the police. You know you can't run forever. In this day and age, becoming a fugitive was almost impossible. Hearing this, Tom grew visibly agitated. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know you. Get out. Anna stared him down and said urgently. I know you had no choice. We can help you. Tell us what you want. Do you really want to live the rest of your life under someone else's thumb? Maybe it was that last sentence that got through to Tom. His expression wavered. Seizing the opportunity, I pushed the iron door open and walked inside. Let's talk. Tom looked up at me, realizing he had no choice. Anna and I worked together, good cop, bad cop, coaxing and pressuring him until he finally started talking. That guy promised me $1 million, he said. With my background, no one would suspect it was anything but an accident. But then he only gave me half, $500,000. I sat in jail for 7 months, and when I got out, he kept dodging me like I was an idiot. As Tom grew more agitated, I calmly pulled out my phone, found a photo of Makoto, and held it up. Was it him? Yes, it's him. Tom's gaze hardened, but when he caught Anna's emotionless stare, he immediately wilted. I know everything now, but even if you came to me, it wouldn't have changed anything. If I hadn't done it, he would have just found someone else. Either way, he wanted you hit. Makoto didn't necessarily want you dead. At the time, he said disabling you would be enough. I laced my fingers together, tapping lightly. My slow, calm voice carried immense pressure. I'll give you $2 million to stand up and identify Makoto. I want him in jail, but I can transfer the money to you immediately. If you're worried, we'll draft a contract and have it notarized by a lawyer. I'm a businessman. I honor my promises. Tom stood there, mouth agape, clearly hesitating. In the dim night, I stared him down. I just want to bring the person who tried to kill me to justice. Debts should be paid by the one who owes them. I won't make you pay for someone else's sins, but I hope you'll help me. Finally, Tom nodded. When we stepped out of the abandoned lot, I said, Makoto probably didn't mean to default on him. He just didn't expect that after I died, Willow wouldn't rush to marry him. He probably didn't have enough cash on hand. Anna gave me a look of admiration. You're amazing. I chuckled. Miss Sue is amazing too. Come on, let's go find him. No need. Why? Anna casually pulled a recording pen out of her pocket. This is enough. Let the police handle the rest. You don't need to waste any more time with people like that. Chapter 19. With the evidence in hand, Makoto was soon arrested. The result was completely beyond Willow's expectations. Luis explained the situation to her in detail. Mr. Ito's last request was to see you. The police might contact you for questioning. As soon as he finished speaking, the office phone rang. Willow's expression was slightly dazed. She took a deep breath before picking it up. Hello, Miss Liu. We need your cooperation in an investigation. Please come in to give a statement. At 4 o'clock that afternoon, Willow appeared at the City Public Security Bureau. After the police carefully questioned her about the circumstances, they asked, Mr. Ito would like to see you. Would you be willing? She could refuse if she wanted. Willow's gaze deepened like the sea. She said in a low voice, please arrange it. She also wanted to hear what exactly that man had to say. Soon, Makoto was brought out. Even though only a day had passed, it seemed as if all his spirit had been drained away. He looked utterly haggard. The moment he saw Willow, he shouted excitedly, Willow, I'm innocent. Tell them I didn't do anything. It was him who wasn't careful driving. Why should I take the fall? And besides, he didn't even die, did he? Willow frowned deeply, listening to him roar without saying a word. Makoto's emotions gradually calmed down. His eyes turned red, and tears streamed down his cheeks. Willow, do you really not care about me at all? You're the one who ruined everything between us. The evidence was ironclad. No matter how Makoto tried to argue, he was facing inevitable imprisonment. Willow looked at him indifferently and said, Makoto, I truly did like you back then. And now, I'm sorry. She couldn't lie to herself, just like when she saw me again. She couldn't control the way her heart raced. Feelings fade and emerge without any logic. Makoto let out a cold laugh. So what if you fell in love with me? Do you really think he'll get back together with you? Let me tell you, the whole time I was with you, it was all just a game. He never liked you, not even a little. You wouldn't have guessed, would you? Anna and I made a bet. The bet was whether you could truly forget about me. Willow, you think you're any different from me? We're just their playthings. Makoto had overheard this during a phone call between Anna and George. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given up on Anna so easily and turned back to Willow. That woman, from beginning to end, she only loved George. She was just too proud to say it. That's why she pretended to accept him, to provoke George. But who would have thought George would never take the bait and even agreed to go after Willow? Everything that had happened since then had been a complete joke. Willow didn't even know how she walked out of the detention center. Outside, the sun was shining brightly, but she felt no warmth at all. So, it was all just a lie. She thought of everything that had happened over the past 5 years. The more she thought, the stronger her self-mocking smile became. Well then, she would treat it as her retribution, as the consequence of not cherishing what she had lost. I didn't know any of this. After finishing my statement at the police station and returning to the villa, I found that Oscar had completely redecorated the place. It looked like he was setting up for a villa party. Oscar had originally wanted to invite some friends, but worried I might not like it. He waited until I came back to ask for my opinion. Of course, I had no objections. You guys can play however you want. Really? Oscar's eyes lit up. I'll call everyone right now. He dashed upstairs. At the same time, Anna walked out of the study. Our eyes met across the living room, and we both smiled. All done. Yeah, it's finished. It had been a long time since I felt this relaxed. After a moment of thought, I said, next, whether we return to the US or stay here, I'll follow your lead. After all, I was now working in Anna's company, and Anna was my direct superior. But she didn't immediately answer. Instead, she slowly walked toward me. So suddenly talking about work? Yeah, and what if I don't want to talk about work? Anna's fox-like eyes gazed at me, brimming with indescribable tenderness. She said, enunciating each word clearly, George, I don't want to talk about work. I want to talk about love. Do you? I was stunned for a moment, then a faint smile bloomed at the corners of my lips. In that case, Miss Sue, keep trying.